everyone, and welcome to another live episode of the Present Poetry Podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing Roberta Batorsky. Roberta Batorsky is a poet, science journalist, and college educator. She is in several poetry and fiction writing critique groups, both in person and online, and has put a poetry book together called Perihelion, which was published last November by Prolific Pulse Press. Her individual poems are published in Fine Lines, Delaware Valley Poets Worksheets, Poets for Science, Prolific Pulse Press Poetry Compilations, specifically Social Possibilities and Unhoused, New Jersey Bards, NewVerseNews, Quillkeepers Press, Pure Slush and Heron Clan. She has been a freelancer, editor, and reviewer of life sciences textbooks, and is also the co-edit of the Heron Clan poetry publication. Roberta writes on topics as varied as her interests and is currently teaching biology at a New Jersey youth correctional facility. We are pleased to have her on the podcast. So without further ado, Ms. Roberta. Thank you for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So my first question for you is, I know it says in your bio that you are a science professor. Do you find that there is a connection between science and poetry?
There can be.
There can be?
I think that people's observations are a subject for poetry, and they're also a subject for science. It's not a teaching. Poetry doesn't teach science, but I have a scientific or a logical bent, and I find that I put that in my poetry, and it works pretty well. Mm-hmm. There's a website called Poets for Science, and I read it, and I've also submitted, and it's really fun to hear people include scientific observations or some terminology, or not heavy terminology, and I think people enjoy it.
Yeah, I can believe that. And it's interesting to me because I've dabbled with writing science or writing poems based on math numbers and math figures. Never really thought about, writing something that incorporates science, like a strictly science.
Right. So well, math is a science, and I've enjoyed reading people play around with numbers and play kind of numerical games in their poetry. It makes it fun for people to read.
Mm-hmm. It does, and it's fun to write if you're more mathematical minded or science minded.
I agree.
But I do like that you've managed to find a good way to marry the two.
Sort of a happy medium.
Mm-hmm. Do you find there's one aspect of science that inspires you to write poetry more than others?
I would say there are various observations of nature.
Nature.
And you find that in lots of poetry. But, making inquiries of nature, trying to put a little more understanding about life and development and, illness. Mm-hmm. Just thinking about nature and putting it into a context, dealing with your observations, and also maybe putting a little bit of science into it.
Okay. So it really is a marriage. Like you're adding a little bit of everything.
Well, it's what I know, because I teach science. So mm-hmm. To a certain extent, it's what I hew to, because it's where my knowledge base is. But you can apply scientific understanding and inquiry into everything, and I think it makes the poetry. There are a lot of poets, Marianne Moore. There are a lot of poets who write with that knowledge or that inspiration, and I love their poetry.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel you got into poetry? Because in my head, again, the science world and the poetic world is generally separated. So how did you bridge that gap for the first time?
Good question. Well, I've always been writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of a natural thing for me to think about what I'm looking at and bring my science mind to it, and also bring my poetry mind to it. And I found that it was a very natural thing for me. My poems aren't always like that. I mean, as a poet, I have my voice that I'm trying to
Right.
build and share. And it doesn't always lead me to science. Leads me to trying to understand myself a little better and my place in nature and my experiences of life and other people's experiences. It doesn't always go to science, but sometimes it does.
Hmm. And I can imagine that's good for you to have that break from science and from the analytical and to get a little whimsical with it.
Yes, I think so. And I love humor in poetry. And
Hmm.
I'm trying to read more at open mics, and I find that people really like, if you get a little silly, get a little whimsical, get a little silly with them, and put it in a poem, and you know they hear it, they like it. There's a movement around that. People go to open mics, people write poetry, people share poetry, people
Hmm.
start critique groups. It's such a positive thing. I,
It
I'm
really is.
I'm thrilled. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it is definitely a good movement. I know my local arts chapter has been really trying to get more open mics going and more poetry clubs going, and I really appreciate that poetry is coming back in a way.
Yeah, that's a good thing. But also in terms of delivering my poetry at open mics, I find that being a teacher, um, I can use some of those skills to communicate my poetry to people. I'm not necessarily frightened, as I was when I started teaching. I'm used to talking in front of people and trying to gauge their responses and trying to tease them with some of my humorous poetry and enjoying their responses.
Yeah, and that those are great skills to have, especially when you do more speaking at the open mics, and because reading your own stuff is very vulnerable in a way. But if you're used to being in front of people and having the attention, then it's a little bit easier. I bet.
Except if you're at a bar and there's a lot of ambient noise, people drinking
Yeah.
and clinking. I mean, they're having fun. So, but
So on the
trying to
bright
leave,
side, they have the inebriation, so
yeah,
it
loosen them
doesn't
up a
matter if
little.
you mess up or anything because they're not gonna know.
Right. And when you read a poem that has some repetition in it, I find that it is more what do you call it, conducive, or gets people's attention a little better, almost like a song. So if you're in that kind of environment, it's almost like singing a song for them, and people, give their attention to the choruses or whatever it is in your poetry, that repetition, that style, and people like it.
Hmm. It's very memorable that way because the more repetition you can put into it, the more people are going to remember. Oh, hey, rhymes with this, or this says this.
Yeah, I heard that. I just heard that a minute ago.
Did you?
Yeah, I had a poem that I read, it was a while ago, called um, She Did It, Not Me. It was a better title, but it was because we had a senator, uh, Senator Menendez, who's no longer a senator, blamed his wife for some of the corruption he was charged with.
Oh,
And our Justice Alito, it was all at the same time, blamed his wife for hanging the flag upside down on the lawn.
oh
So
no.
I had a good chorus. Blame her, not me, and it repeated, and it was current, and people were singing along and
Yeah,
swaying. It's cool. You get
that.
inspired by seeing people's responses. It's very open
Mhm.
mics have been a very positive experience for me.
They usually are too because you do get that feedback and you get the support that you might not do with a writing group or a book club.
And you're reaching out.
Mhm.
It's like giving people the news or something like that, the way news used to be delivered.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, because poetry was a very oral tradition, and that's how they got a lot of their news and their lessons and their morals and
right.
through that repetition.
The troubadour poets.
Yes, right, back from the very beginning. So, as a teacher and a poet, do you have any suggestions for people who would like to start writing poetry?
Oh, that's good. Um, I would say join a critique group and don't be in awe of anybody in particular, because if you belong to multiple critique groups, there'll be people who say, "Well, that's the best I've ever heard," and there are people who say, "Like, did you really mean that?" Or like, you got to
Hmm.
balance it, and you can get that balance, and also some very good support in a critique group, and it will help kind of hone your voice. I think it's
Okay.
important. It's been important for me.
How would you find a critique group?
Well, I got the first critique group through a site called Meetup.
Meetup?
Yeah, and I just put in writing groups near me, and I'm in central New Jersey. And I found a critique group that met in person at the library and got to know people that way.
Okay. Some meetup. Do you do any on like Facebook groups or
I
have you found
do.
any on there?
I haven't found any critique groups there, but I do look at the poetry groups, and I know there's also virtual open mics. We were just
Hmm.
talking about open mics. They're virtual open mics where you can, like we're doing now, go on a Zoom and present your poetry, and you don't have to like go anywhere. You can be part of that. It can be a worldwide community. So
Hmm.
you get to share your poetry with people who you would never have any chance of meeting. And that's
Yeah,
such a powerful, it's a very powerful experience.
it is. I agree. And the Zoom meetings could be a lot more fun for people who don't like get out of the house much or can't get out of the house much, but they can
People who
still.
have some mobility issues or
Hmm.
other issues, and also may not, for whatever reason, want to travel, and they can, if with time permitting. I am in a group that's in California, and a lot of the things I want to go to, I'd have to stay up until 11 o'clock at night, and I
Hmm.
may not may not choose to do that, although it might be worthwhile for me. But it's like, okay, time to go to bed.
Yeah, I understand that. Sleep is also important. Now, before we get into your poetry, is there any other advice or thoughts that you think our audience should know?
Yeah, I think that, not about me in particular, but read poetry.
Hmm.
Read read poetry of your choosing from past poets like Keats and Shelley and Byron and other poets, and read modern poetry. There's a site called NewVerseNews, and I've been fortunate to have them select some of my poetry, and all of their stuff is extremely topical, might even be something that's happened the previous day.
Oh,
So,
wow.
you can, if you're that kind of poet who captures like the essence of the day's events in a poem,
Hmm.
your poem might be selected and shared. And I don't read poetry, write poetry, revise.
Hmm.
Um, don't be happy with things at the first shot. Um, and reading will improve your vocabulary, which
Hmm.
is important. I think hone your voice, improve your vocabulary. And even if you don't feel you're particularly successful, because I know I'm submitting to a bunch of publications, and this year has been a good year for me in terms of being accepted. But even if you're not accepted, don't be discouraged, because the
Hmm.
point is to write better. And if you have the endurance and the kind of strong will, you can submit. And possibly, if you continue to submit, you'll be accepted.
So just keep trying until it happens.
Keep trying. It's fun. And then when you see yourself in print, like my book was published, I was just ecstatic. I
Mm-hmm.
never, I never,
Congratulations on that.
I never expected I was complete. Putting the book together took a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of work. And then you think, why am I putting all this work in if I'm not going to even get published? So I was very lucky to find a publisher. It doesn't necessarily happen, but it's still a good experience, even putting a book together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting published, like getting actually picked up by a publisher when you write poetry is a huge thing.
It is a huge thing. It's a huge thing. I mean, it's a hard market. And then if
Mm-hmm.
you go to the used bookstore and you find all these little thin volumes with names that you've never heard of, and
Mm-hmm.
you think like, what was the degree of success? But you find great poets. You find great poetry, great poets. I collect too many of those books.
Never have too many.
Yeah, I agree.
I also collect poetry collections, so I understand.
Great. That's good. And this is a great venue for poets that you provide. It's a really
Oh,
good
thank
thing.
you. I really wanted something that I could share my work and others' work on there as well. So,
Yes, I totally agree. It's wonderful that people are doing that and that you're doing that.
mhm.
Helps people.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, speaking of, do you have some to read for us today?
Yeah, I don't know how much time we have. I guess maybe we have a little time. Yeah, I have some poems and you'll have to actually stop me because I selected too many to possibly read.
Okay, I'll keep an eye on it then.
Okay, good. The first poem I'd like to read is the title poem of my collection. My collection it was published last November, and it's called Perihelion, which maybe you read when the first draft of this came out. Perihelion is actually another science thing, but it's not necessary to know. But it's when the Earth in its orbit comes closest to the sun. Um, well, the poem again is Perihelion. The corkscrew tendril hugs the branch, teaching tenacity to spiky seed arrows sunk in snow and blind night crawlers, deep burrowed in streams of translucent pebbles. A largo of forgetting builds to a wintry cadenza, while cardinals roost in dense evergreens, force solitary strands of communion through the lattice work of time. Decide which notes to mute or sustain for better or worse. Your choice to make to people this pilotless planet. Camera eyes envision a sand dune with the semblance of snow in a glitter globe where a photograph in a locket holds a memory tethered by a single hair. That's the
That's
title poem
beautiful.
of my collection. Thank you. There's a lot of images in it.
Mm-hmm. It does, but they're good images.
Thank you. I remember walking in the park and I saw the seed arrows are like the kind of skeletons around the seed, and they have like spikes. And I was stepping on them, and they were crunching in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
An experience like that, if you're in the poetic state of mind, experience like that you can build a poem around it.
Absolutely.
So much fun, and kids can do it. It's fun to have kids do poetry. I judged a youth science poetry competition, and they did wonderful, inspiring work.
Mm-hmm. Kids have a great imagination.
They definitely do, and they're open to all these observations and things they put
Mm-hmm.
together. The next poem I'll read is more humorous. It's called Loo Lid, and Loo is a English way of describing a toilet.
Okay.
There's a habit of yours I would love to defeat. Could you kindly consider putting up the seat? Can you understand? For me, it's a trigger. A wet butt in the AM is very unpleasant, not to mention undesirable and dirty. Am I dealing with an adolescent? Do you do it to madden and thwart me? I'm accustomed to a seated loo lid. It's so clean and sanitary. A rear on bare porcelain tends to skid. You're no longer in a dormitory. To leave it up is quite contrary. The correct response is clear and hygienic. Leave the John as customary, or you will encounter me splenetic. Maybe it's genetic. Replace the seat. So unaesthetic. And by the way, what's your rush? Remember, always look and flush.
I like
People,
that. I could see someone posting that like in their bathroom for guests to read.
that's a good idea. That's great. So funny.
Little remembrance that, toilet etiquette is for everyone.
Toilet etiquette. Remember, always look and flush. This
Mhm.
may, I think maybe this will be the last one I read. It's unless you want me to keep on. This is called, this was accepted for publication. It's called The Pickle Man on Avenue U, and I'm from Brooklyn,
Oh, okay.
and I have some Brooklyn references. Acetic acid fumes permeate my lungs for blocks in every direction. His handsome oaken vats proudly display their shiny green pickles and imperfect globes of unripe tomatoes, exuberantly bobbing in their brine. Gherkin, sour, dill, half sour, Polish, kosher, bread and butter. The golden ratio is 3 to 2 to 1, vinegar to water to sugar. A liberal dosing of petite pearl onions or cipolline accelerate the sourness.
Mm.
The, pickle man's long tongs are spring-loaded for efficiency, locking, clamping fiercely onto the globes and submarines, precisely depositing them in wax paper bags for me. He, pickle midwife. The elongated capsules nudge each other. For you, 3 pickles for 2 bits. Best deal on the avenue. All Brooklyn, even. They come from the whole world for such a pickle. Such a delight. He smacks his lips to demonstrate their tartness. Mwah! Geschmack, my Shana Punim. That means beautiful face. Spazier by my humble stand. Spazier means walk around. Claim your pickle prize. Even now, the pickle crunch transports me back to the bittersweet streets of my Brooklyn.
I love that. That was such a visual. Like I was staring at his pickle stall while you were reading.
We'll get some
Really want a
pickles.
pickle now too.
Me too. Yeah, that was fun to read. It was published by a publication out of Australia that's writing
Really?
something called the Great Cities of the World. So they
Oh,
published it. It's funny.
how fun that you got picked to represent your city like that
That's right, with pickles.
with pickles of all things.
That's right. That was a fun thing to do.
Well, that was fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, where can people find you online if they would like to check out your books or look up your other works?
Yeah, I think I may have put it in the bio, but it's Roberta Batorsky, Batorsky _ poetry at Instagram.com.
Okay,
That's my
I'll make
Instagram.
sure to link that in the show notes as well, so people can go find it.
That would be great. That would be wonderful. I have about 300 followers, and I keep posting poetry, and I love to read their comments and see their names,
Hmm.
and if I can, follow them back, and that starts a conversation. That's also really fun.
Yeah, networking is a big part of it, and it's fun to network with other poets.
Yeah, it's really important. There's so many poets, and they're so different, and they're in so many different places.
Hmm.
It's amazing. And everybody has their own trajectory or their own plan in mind. Some people want to publish, some people just want to write, some people want to write memoir type of poetry, other people want to write sonnets and villanelles. So it's like it's a vast library of poetry that you get yourself into when you start with this, as you well know.
Yeah, and that's honestly, we need more poets and poetry in the world.
It's a journey. It's definitely a journey.
It is. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your work with us and your experience.
I've enjoyed it so much.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Present Poetry Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, feel free to like us, leave a review, or share us on social media. If you are a poet or you know someone who is, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us or submit your work through our website, which is www.present-poetry.com. Again, that is www.present-poetry.com. We can't wait to hear from you.